Alright, we're back. I was talking a little bit about characters, designs, and looking at the Lucky Lenny character here. Um, so this is a sketch of how I put the character parts together, drew them separately so that I could design them and have them the different parts have functionality where they can move separately and stuff like that. So something to keep in mind as you're drawing your characters. What parts of the face might you want to um, be posable or um, be removable, that sort of thing. Um, yeah. So he's got a lot of functionality. His mustache moves. His glasses don't, but his hair moves because it's rope. And, his whole head moves. And his hat is another character in the story. The hat is the thing that creates all the problem in the story. So sometimes you can have an inanimate object, something that is not alive, causing a lot of trouble just by the wind blowing it off his head. Creates all this trouble with the robot. Um, so let me show you. Okay, well, I was going to get into the storyboard. Okay, so that brings us into the storyboard, and that's the thing we're going to be working on after you have your story concept. Okay, so let's talk about the story concept first. It's like a pitch almost. You heard of a elevator pitch where you've got this is often the case for movies. You run into a movie executive, someone who's a producer, and you're a aspiring filmmaker, and you have an idea and you want to pitch your movie to this person. Now, in this case, your movie's only going to be, we're looking at about 30 seconds. Could be longer, but I think 30 seconds is a good goal. But still imagine that you're pitching your story. And so we often say 20 words or less. I'm thinking more like 20 to 50 words. It's sometimes it's hard to say something in 20 words or less, but elevator meeting, elevator pitch. What happens in your story? So let's talk about that. You've only got 20 seconds to talk to this person. Maybe it's a short elevator ride. So what kind of let's look at what happens in a story that's short. Okay, who does what, when, where, how, why. I may have covered all this last time, but we're gonna do a lot of going back and going forward because some of you are going to be a little bit behind. Some of you are going to be ready to jump to the next phase. But I do want everyone to have your sketches done before you go on to your story concept, and then finish your story concept before you go on to your storyboard, which I'll get into in a few minutes here. So story concept, 20 to 50 words. It's still really short. Who does what, where, when, how, why. And the why may be implied. It may not be so obvious. So there's a beginning. What is happening before the main action happens? There's a scene, there's a setting. Maybe someone is washing dishes. Maybe a teacher is teaching. Maybe a truck driver is driving. Maybe a dog is sniffing a bush. Who knows? Something is happening. And then there's rising action. Something sets up the major conflict. Maybe a bee buzzes around the shrub and the dog is startled. And then I'm making this up as I go along. And then there's a climax, the major conflict. Something happens. Maybe the bee goes into the dog's mouth, right? And you guys all love dogs. I know that. So, and then there is resolution. And in this case, maybe the dog's tongue is all swollen, and the bee flies off, and the dog has to put its mouth into a pond or something to cool off or something. So very simple series of events, but there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's a climax, and then there's a resolution. Something resolves. There's something has changed. Okay, so there's a real art to telling a short story, and it's not easy. So feel free to, like, brainstorm ideas with other people, like, each one of these parts. I have another example. A fisherman catches a fish. The fish likes the music played by the fisherman on his flute. So the fish is in a bucket, and the fish likes the music the fisherman is playing on his flute. The fish joins in playing on a bucket like bongos, and they row off together. Okay, so that's a very short concept story. So that brings us to our storyboard. So you got your characters. Try even though your story concept is going to be short, try and fill in some details, like if you can, and that's why I put 50 words, because I don't want you leaving stuff out just to keep it short. It's really it's not, the elevator ride's not going to end if you're trying to tell your short story, as long as it's not too long, so that it's doable as far as shooting it and everything. Generally, it's going to be in one location. There's always exceptions to that, but so let's move on now. Once you've got your characters drawn in a setting, and you've got your story concept, 20 to 50 words, your elevator pitch, you're going to work on your storyboard. The storyboards are awesome, but like a short story, they can also be pretty difficult to fully realize. So it's lightly drawn here, but hopefully you can see it. This is a short storyboard I did for one of the scenes here called Robot Pizza, and this is the scene where the robot loses control of his pizza and his stack of pizzas, and he manages to catch them all and the hat. Well, he loses the pizzas because the hat comes in and bumps the pizzas. Okay, so the hat's always the instigator. So the conflict is the hat versus the robot. The robot wants to deliver the pizzas. It's his job. The hat is mischievous, has really no real personality, but being blown around by the wind, it seems to bother everyone. So here's this, just 4 frames, and so it's a lot like a comic strip or a comic graphic novel. In this case, you've got the robot, and it's a close-up on the robot's face, but you get to see the logo, and that's why it's a close-up, because you want to establish that it's a robot and there's pizza, and then you see that he's delivering the pizza, and the hat comes in. There's a little arrow here. That's showing where the wind is blowing the clouds. So, and here's the hat. The hat knocks off his hat, and then he does a real kind of a cool move and catches the hat on his knee and balances all the pizzas on one hand. And because it's animation, the way the boxes fly in the air and stuff can be super dramatic and kind of awesome. Like, you can really make it over the top, like dramatic. But in this case, it's humor, so it's like it looks like they're going everywhere, and there's no way he's gonna ever get them. But because he's a robot and because it's animation, anything is possible. And that's one of the big fun things about animation is you can really exaggerate these things. Um, so this is what I want you guys to do next. Once you have your characters drawn and your story established, I want you to draw these frames that make up the beginning, the rising action, the climax, and the resolution of your story. Now, if you have a hard time dividing up into 4, do your best. Perhaps it's 3 things. Perhaps there's a little bit more detail, and if you need to do another side, that's okay. So here's some more sketches that I did. The green plastic tree. I had some cool green plastic egg cartons I thought would make a cool looking, like a futuristic tree. So this is like Robot City, I think they call it, or Cyber City is what I was calling it. I don't have a sign for it, but I like to create one that says "Welcome to Cyber City," where everything's kind of perfect and the trees are perhaps not real. Maybe this is a cell tower or something. But here's the design, and then I came up with the logo, Robot Pizza. So these are the details for me that like really make it fun. And you can see I got the Robot Pizza on the pizza boxes. I've even made a t-shirt design that you can order online. Maybe this will take off someday. Who knows? Okay, so the storyboard. Let's talk a little bit more about that. You can put in some details, like I was talking earlier about the arrows, like what's moving, what are the movements. You can also put in some dialogue. In this case, there's no dialogue, but if someone says something, or there's a movement, like in this case the hat is going this way and the clouds are going this way, you can put in arrows and even put in, whatever kind of details you want it to help clarify what's going on here. Now people do that in film for the sake of the director. So sometimes the people shooting the film are not the people who drew the storyboard. So you'll see this in comic book sketches and whatnot too. So do look, if you have a favorite comic artist or whatever. I like Frank Miller, so I like looking at some of his sketches and stuff, and they really show like where some of the movement in the scene is happening, and they're really the same thing. Comic book strips and storyboards. They just storyboards. The thing that's different is storyboards are designed for the camera frame. In comic books, you can have any size frame. It could be a nice long strip if you want that's vertical. Now, if you're showing that on a screen in a theater, you're going to have all this negative space that's black, and it's been done before, that kind of thing. But generally, you're doing a storyboard. You're drawing a frame for the camera. So when you draw your storyboards, you want it to have the same. So you want to have it sideways and crop it like so that the frame is wide. So we're going to be shooting in your traditional wide format YouTube specs. So, all right, so you got a lot of work to do as far as getting this stuff done. We talked a little bit about creating characters. Now, some of you may be really itching to build your characters, and you'll be getting your magnets and some of your materials today, I believe. Yep. So, but we'll be getting into those details more next week. And I'll be talking to you all on Friday, I think, so we can start talking about some of that. Okay, I think that's all for now. Have a great rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you all via Zoom. Not really, I don't like Zoom.